Thanks. Welcome, everyone. Be Here Now is about the convergence of some very powerful forces in today's internet. And these forces are becoming everyday life for most of us. Mobility, location, always on, social, zero-touch payment, not to mention cloud. These are not just marketing blah-blah things. Be Here Now is happening because the world is getting more connected every day. Everything becomes digital. So let's have a look at the driving forces for Be Here Now. The subject of today's discussion is a real hot topic right now. It's called Solomo, Somolo, whatever. It's about the convergence of social networking, mobile devices, and location-based services. So let me, in the following, elaborate a little bit on that. For mobile, the trends are very clear. According to Morgan Stanley, there could be 10 billion mobile devices by 2020. In 2 to 3 years, I think more people will use the internet through mobile devices more than on traditional PCs. And even in Germany, what do? They go to social networks and they visit them 3-4 times a day and spend 2 hours in that. So, today's topic also looks into the future. Let's call it the post-digital age. The post-digital age does not longer differentiate between old and new media, between classic and digital media. In the post-digital age, everything will be digital. Digital, therefore, is normal. The new internet is globally available everywhere, every time, and it's becoming more and more local. It's also with the people, anywhere, anytime, at a fingertip. 30% of all smartphone users use their phone while they are in bed. And some people already use 6 or 7 internet-enabled devices already today. In the future, even more. And they use these devices, that means they use the internet simultaneously. In the post-digital age, as I said, all information you have at a fingertip. The pictures of your family, chats with your friends, movies, all services from the cloud. The mobile device, my smartphone, therefore is the remote control for my life. It simplifies many things I need to do. Just imagine moving homes in 3 hours. The only physical thing that happens is the truck moving your stuff. Getting medical advice or the latest medical reports personalized from your doctor? Done. Manage a wedding? No problem. But, leave that at home in the honeymoon. So, this is my digital mate. This digital mate will help manage my life. Most important then is how to manage all that information that is possibly out there. I clearly need help. I need help from my mates, from my online mates, from my friends. They give me the best advice. So this mobile mate is not only global or local, it's also very, very social. It has a social and local context. It leads me to local businesses and services. And because life is mostly local, this is very important. So, by the way, motto of this conference, Screen Wars. Really, Screen Wars, that's pre-digital. It's not about screens anymore. Think about the impact and what it means for companies. Business in the future, to a vast extent, will happen locally. Just take Groupon. Yes, it's a worldwide player, but its businesses are playing by extremely local rules. Imagine all these small and medium companies leveraging that potential. Local really reigns. And companies are definitely forced to become social. They have to be where the customers are, to be in the mindsets of the customers, to be part of the discussions, and to be recommended. That's the challenge for these companies. how to be best in class with respect to social, local, and mobile. We will see, and I'm really looking forward to the discussion, that no company can do that all by itself. We all need partnerships in this post-digital markets. So, I am now more than pleased to have the opportunity today to discuss this matter with three very experienced and well-known experts. So, thank you very much.
All right, thanks for the introducing speech, which highlights very well that local, social, and mobile are going to eat the internet and eat global business. One of the things we talk about a lot when we talk about mobile and social is platforms. Which platform is going to win? Which network is going to win? How do you build businesses on top of those platforms? Hans-Peter, you work at Nokia and you run their local apps and services. And Nokia is interesting because they both do the device, but they also do software on top of the device. So can you tell us a little bit about how you see which platforms emerging and how to use them?
Sure. I run what's called social location at Nokia, a bunch of product efforts, and then also some future stuff. And the way we look at it is, I think today you have to split. Platforms is an overused word, as somebody was pointing out yesterday, I think. But you have to look at, it's a fairly complex ecosystem, and so you have to look at the social platform, right? Which I think pretty much de facto today is Facebook. There are some contenders that are vying at it. I think Google's trying with Google Plus, and some people would argue Twitter's trying, but effectively, and there's some local markets where there might be other platform plays, but essentially you've got Facebook as a social platform. Then you have to look at the location and local platform. Where's the reference data? Where does kind of all the location stuff sit? And there, I think there are effectively two players at the platform level. There's Nokia, with our maps infrastructure and maps platform and location-based services, and then there's Google with Google Maps and their infrastructure. And then you have to look at if you look at mobility alone, you have to look at the mobile ecosystem, where essentially you could also argue there are three ecosystems, right? There's Android, there's iOS, and there's WinPhone, which are now is now entering aggressively as a third ecosystem. So I think, without getting into too much more detail, that's kind of the groundscape, the core landscape, where you've got these three in social, local, mobile, and you have to figure out. And then, of course, there's the web and HTML5 as kind of a layer or platform as well. So I could spend the next 30 minutes just discussing perspectives on this, but I'll spare you. But I think that's a kind of a ground setting in terms of how we look at the landscape.
All right, and another thing that doesn't get talked about enough as opposed to platforms is solving problems, because a lot of people say, well, social, mobile, that's very nice, but whose problems do you actually solve? And we have some problem solvers on this panel, like Anne, who solved the problem of getting people into stores, which is a real problem for companies. Tell us a bit about that.
So at Placecast, we connect marketers with consumers that want to hear from those marketers in real time, in the real world. And to take a little bit of exceptions to Hans-Peter, because we need to have a debate here.
Absolutely.
Location is not
Yes.
just Google Maps and Nokia Maps and the services they are layering on top. I think that we are moving from a first generation of the web, which was all about content, organizing content, giving access to content, which is search, basically, to how to connect people, which is Facebook. And the next wave, which is really going to change everything, is going to be about connecting both content and people to the physical world. And this is what Placecast does. And the way we do this is by simplifying, if you will, the relationship between marketers who want to talk to consumers and consumers who function in the physical world. 95% of purchases in the world are done in the physical world, still today. And we have seen a lot of very extraordinary, futuristic interfaces and applications. The reality of the world is, outside of Western Europe and the US, about 10% of people have smartphones. So how do you solve the problem of bringing all this technology and this digital experience into solving a problem in the real world? And for advertisers, it's all about selling more products in physical location. So location is a lot more, I think, than the previous generation vision of mapping and directions and store locators would be my contention.
All right, and after getting people into the stores, there's getting people who are inside the stores to buy, and that's you, Ajay, who are doing very interesting thing about, there's this phrase that I remember that I really liked, the screen that no one talks about. So what's the screen that no one talks about?
So I'd like to talk about two things. I mean, one is, over the last 2 days it's been terrific, but nobody has talked about the third screen, which is the millions and millions of screens you all see on a daily basis when you're out and about. The screens are outside the home, the screen that's in your taxi cab, the screen that was in the elevator in the Monte Carlo Bay Hotel, the screen that's in the retailers. So we're the world's largest company managing these screens. We manage about 400,000 screens worldwide that are outside the home. And we're trying to solve a very, very simple problem. I completely agree with Anne. 95% of transactions take place in bricks and mortar stores. So let me give you an example of the problem I'm trying to solve. I have a 15-year-old daughter. She shops online at H&M, Henny's, which is a worldwide fashion brand. When she's online, they know everything about her. They know her purchase history, they know how much she spends, they know what to recommend to her. It's fantastic. It's Amazon, what Amazon does online. Now, when she walks into the store in Oxford Street, they've completely forgotten everything they know about her when she's about to buy something, which is insane. So the problem we're trying to solve is, how do you tell Henny's that my daughter Layla is in the store in Oxford Street, this is her profile, this is what she likes, now make her some offers that she wants to use to buy in the store. And we use a combination of the digital sign in the store and her mobile phone to get the two to communicate with each other. Now this is true local, because it is completely hyper-local because she's about to buy something. Using the mobile phone is now a social experience. So when she's buying stuff, she's actually taking photographs of stuff and sending it to her friends saying, what do you think about this? And the mobile is what's enabling all of this together with the digital signs that we provide. So I think it's a very different take on this. And there are billions and billions of dollars going through these out-of-home screens right now. And Spencer, I think you need a complete session on this next time.
All right. Another very important aspect of Solomo is all the data that it generates, and how do you manage that data, how do you sort through it, who owns it, how do you collect it, etc. And something you said when we spoke earlier, Anne, which was very interesting, which is that the only people who have real-time, around-the-clock location data on us are the networks, the guys who we pay phone service to. And yet they're the guys that we don't talk about enough in that process. So Dr. Enderle, maybe you could say something about what operators like Deutsche Telekom are planning to do with that data, how they work with other people with that data.
Okay. No, as you said, of course, we have a lot of data. We know the customers, we know the addresses, we know the accounts, everything, and we know, of course, the location.
We know everything.
We know everything, big brother. No, but seriously, but that, of course, also is an obligation for us, to really protect this data. Yeah, and we've seen a lot of things happening in the last years, where data were really not stored properly and or were hacked, and this of course destroys trust in a telecom operator, especially. So we are very reluctant, of course, to give everybody the data, and but we know that the data is really a clear treasure, and a clear source of value. And we have to find ways how to make this happen, how to create value from that. I just talked to Anne.
That's
before.
what I'm asking.
Yeah. That's but it's it's a clear opt-in thing then. Yeah.
Right.
It's we cannot just give it away. It's an opt-in thing, and of course this is a big hurdle. Yeah, it's also not known in internet in a way. If you work with cookies, if I sometimes have discussions in the board of Deutsche Telekom, and no names now, but the board members then say, but I think we agreed that we only send 1 or 2 SMS per year to the customer. Is that right? Yeah, and should we really open that to 5 SMS or so? Yeah, and I tell them then. If you look at internet, we do all this targeting stuff, retargeting millions of customers, millions of emails every day, and they are totally shocked then. And so we have to bridge exactly that gap to say, yeah, we have that data. If we do a clear opt-in strategy and if we leave the customer the choice, then we can use the data, and then business models like Anne is doing come into place. And so I believe great value. Takes some time, but I think it's understood that we can create value, and if we do it the right way, it will happen. It's an opt-in thing then, but this is a hurdle in classical internet.
Yeah, you can jump in.
Can I just come in there for a second, because there's a fascinating way for third parties to use this data. So we've partnered with a company called Path Intelligence out of the UK and in the US, and what we do with them is they look at the mobile phone pings of people. So they put receivers into shopping malls or retailers, and as people walk through the store, they're monitoring their pings. Now, it's totally anonymous. They don't know who the person is. But they can measure pedestrian flow through the shopping mall, and they can see where do they stop, where do they go, where don't they go. And this has some fascinating connotations. So we just did an experiment with Macy's, where we talked to Macy's, and we put these things in, and we looked at people walking through Macy's. And we said, what's your problem? And they said, well, our problem is that our conversion rate is 23%. So 77% of people who walk into Macy's never buy anything. So we said, well, are they people with a propensity to buy? And they said, what do you mean? We said, well, when we did this analysis, we saw 15% were using Macy's as a shortcut to get to the car park. So they never actually planned to buy anything. Now, Macy's has this data from the mobile phones, and now they can do something about it. They can potentially figure out, how do I interrupt the journey of these 15%? Because even if a couple of percent of them buy something, it changes my dynamics. So this data can be used in some really interesting ways. It's anonymous, so there are no privacy issues. But I think there's some fascinating things one can do with it.
Yeah, you want to?
So I'd like to bring it back to the consumer a little bit. I'm seeing kind of a future here of the Minority Report, where the screens speak to you and the emails show up and the SMSs bug you, and I was in prior lives. I started a company that did one-to-one marketing and all that stuff. So I've heard the one-to-one story for a long time, and the coupons when you walk into the store, and it's all real great. But I think what's really interesting to me, again, back to take issue back, I think back to the platform story, all of this stuff requires core platform services, right? You have to know that you're at Macy's. Well, what's Macy's mean, right? Macy's is a place. Somebody has to basically reference this as a place. And then I think from a consumer perspective, I think it's really important to focus the discussion on what the real value proposition and value add is for consumers. And so being able to identify myself in a place, I like the example of, we've done a lot of research and we look at a lot, when women in particular shop, they like to get positive reinforcement. And so their whole suite of apps now that are showing up where they take pictures of themselves and then share the pictures and have conversations around the pictures with a small group of people. And so these are obviously very interesting applications where if you can intersect that flow and provide value to the consumer in the process, clearly there's opportunity there. But again, it has to be built on a platform. I suspect even in your case, you're probably using Facebook as the platform to get the people in the first place and to identify their graph and identify the people around them. So that's one platform component which you're then innovating on top of as an app developer, for instance.
So I entirely agree with what you just, Mike. It's all about the context. So I think there is also a myth to dispel here, which is the coupon that is shot to you when you pass by a Starbucks, right? I actually work with Starbucks. And what we have done with them has nothing to do with identifying with a GPS where you are very precisely. And there is the world of location is rather unknown from a technology standpoint to the general public. But the reality, and we have the numbers to prove it because we've been doing this before even the iPhone came out, is whether I am 50 meters from a store or 300 meters from a store, if it's the right context, the right mindset, the right intent, it's completely irrelevant how far I am. And that enables the operators to use location of the network and to apply this to 100% of the subscriber base instead of relying on an application, on an OS, and on GPS on the phone. So this notion of context Nokia has done an enormous amount of work, and I'm very aware of what you guys are doing. The complex equation here is you need to manage marketers' information on the one hand, which is related to their physical locations, and there is a whole plumbing that goes into managing location data and context data, and then there is the user data, to Martin's point, and how do you manage opt-ins. And in our case, we're not a public-facing brand. We're working for our brands or for our operator partners, so they're the ones marketing to users. But what is really essential, I think, in the Solomo conversation is the physical reality that we're in, associated with the social branching out that you may want. For example, if you're trying to make a decision in a store and you will ask your friends as you're there, we are in the early stages still, and it's all about the technologies, all of those technologies starting to merge, and how do you provide the best value to the user at the end? Because the consumer is going to choose.
Right. So going back to customer benefits, I think that's very interesting. So the idea is we want to provide a benefit to the customer so that he opts in or she opts in, and so we can use their data and market to them. So consumer benefits can be like social sharing, social interaction, if you're into fashion, blah, blah, blah. It can be discounts in your case, in most cases.
Well, it's not always discounts.
No, it's this. Well, that's sort of the thing I want to maybe throw out. It's what are some examples of these consumer benefits?
We work with the North Face, which is a high-end sports equipment brand, and in their case, they use our service shop alerts under their brand, so the users opt into the North Face program. They actually never do any discounts on the price of their products. They do sales once a year. And they used the geofencing technology that we deploy for them so that when you go to the ski resort, you're going to get there and North Face is going to send you a message telling them it's going to be cold tomorrow, put another layer. It's complete brand engagement. It's nothing to do with pushing coupons. On the other end of the spectrum, I work with unnamed burger companies who are going to want to promote you the free Coke with your burger 3 times a month. So, again, the tying to the real world depends on
Secret burger company.
The marketing of the brand and how they can introduce location into their overall marketing and advertising plans.
So from a consumer value proposition perspective, let me just give 2 quick examples. Nokia Drive, right? We have a Drive application. It's like a PND that you get with your smartphone, and it gives personal navigation device. So it gives you free navigation anywhere in the world. We collect monthly. So whenever you use this application, and it's opt-in, you can turn it off. But whenever you use it, we anonymously collect probe data about where you are. That feeds back into the system so that we can predict traffic patterns. We can give you alternate recommendations for routes to your work. There's no data, there's no monetization for us per se other than building a better product, right? But for the consumer benefit of submitting this data in is I can see that you commute every day from your home to your work. I can again optimize your routes, etc. Provide input. We collect about traffic equivalent of people driving about 80 times around the globe per month right now from these probes. So a lot of traffic data comes in from those. Another one is a product we just introduced called Nokia Pulse. And that what we're doing there is it's a very interesting play where we're saying, look, communication is becoming contextualized by location. Think about, what are the most common things you do with your phone, right? You pick it up and you say, where are you? When are you going to be here? Or you're texting, where should we meet? These sort of standard questions, these standard use cases for a mobile device, we're trying to make that one tap simple. So there's no longer where are you, it's just check in, it's just something you do to your family, to your friends, to your close people around you, to your wife, to your husband, to your colleague. So it's a very simple communications flow, but where we contextualize that with where you are, so that we can answer in one tap where you are. Now, of course, this layers a very interesting data set on top of the core reference set. So now we know people's movement patterns, we know where they're going, what they're doing, and we can use that to predict. We could potentially use it to sell you things, but we can also use it to better, suggest, again, patterns, flows, usage, etc., and improve the products themselves. So there's a huge amount of, I think, interesting innovation, and I'm particularly interested about this whole notion of communication being more contextualized, whether it's sharing a photo, or it's having a conversation. The fact that where you are now, in a privacy context where you're talking to people you care about, not broadcasting it to Facebook and Twitter necessarily, but just talking to small groups. I think there's a very interesting space right there.
If I give you a couple of examples as well, which are again kind of different from what you've got. Two of our customers, one is called Care Media. They're one of the US's largest health networks. So there are about 8,000 physicians' offices across the US. So you're sitting there waiting to see your doctor for 45 minutes often. There's a screen up there, and that screen shows you some great content, shows you ads. Now, if you're, they're in pediatrics, so if you're a new mother and there's a great video about breastfeeding, we've just partnered with Shazam. So what you can actually do is you can just Shazam that video, and instead of telling you the song, which is what Shazam normally does, this gives you a YouTube link to go and look at that video when you're at home. Or if there was an ad for Pampers and you Shazam the ad for Pampers, you might get $1 off when you go and buy the Pampers. So that's one very different interaction between the mobile phone and the screen in a very local area, which is a physician's waiting room. Another completely different example is one of our clients is Six Flags, the amusement park in the US. Now, Six Flags has to put screens in because, and this is another dirty little secret, this is only out on YouTube, the average waiting time is often 45 minutes or more for a ride in Six Flags. So you're standing in line waiting for a ride. It can be extremely dull. So they put screens in all the ride areas to provide music videos, content, and so on. But they're very interested in saying, can people interact with these screens? Can you create a little game so while you're standing in line, there may be a 3 or 4 minute game different people with mobile phones could play on that screen and create a little experience? Can people upload photographs that they've taken of themselves on a ride to the screens so you can see yourself on a screen in Six Flags? So these are real user benefits that you can get. In Care Media's case, it's the ability to tag content to view later. In Six Flags, it's a boring thing standing in a line. How do I entertain myself using these screens on a phone?
All right. We're going to leave some time for questions. Does anybody have questions about the topic of the day or of the hour? Come on.
I like the 30% use their phones in bed. Somebody's going to have to build on that.
Yes, definitely.
What are they doing? Why aren't they sleeping or talking to their spouse?
I left it open.
Exactly.
I don't do that anymore because I bought this.
Oh. Oh.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you. Eric Lawson-Smith from Armour Partners. A very quick question for the panel. We're hearing a huge amount about NFC. Payments seems to me to be one of the biggest themes of the next 1 to 2 years, particularly in a mobile environment. How are each of you looking at the payments opportunity as providing that connectivity to commerce? And how do you see this market evolving?
Can I take that
Sure,
first?
it's for the panel, everyone.
So, and the reason I'd like to take that first is that we are in that value chain where it's all about streamlining the relationship between the consumer and a brand, marketer, retailer who wants to talk to them. And the truth is, NFC by itself absolutely doesn't matter. It's a replacement of a utility which is swipe by a utility which is do not swipe. So if you go back up one level, you think, okay, what is that for? Well, it's for payments. And then you realize, well, payments is all fine, but it's not about payment. It's about the commerce. It's about what do you pay for? So the more again, the tools and the technologies are combining, and we work a lot with banks and credit card companies to close the loop on the transaction, obviously. The issue is back to the real commerce, how mobile can enable real commerce in real places. We forget that for retailers, 95% of their capital expenditure is on their physical stores. They really need to get you in there. Starbucks makes 75% of their revenue before 10 a.m. They really need to get you in there after that. These are real world problems with very large amounts of money, because it's not just advertising. It's all the dollars that all the brands spend marketing. This is hundreds of billions of dollars in the world.
So I would agree that I think as technology industry guys, we're really bad at branding and naming, right? NFC, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. You'd think we could come up with something a little more interesting for the consumer. So I'm sort of building on your point. I don't think it's about NFC per se, although it's a great enabling capability. If every person, if there's something you're going to have in your pocket. People talk about the phone being more important than your wallet these days, right? If there's something you're not going to leave home without, it's your phone. And so another, again, user-facing example, we're doing some work with the New York Transit Authority now, where every time, so we have these really cool public transit apps. Where you will just literally see, if I want to get from here to here, when's the next real-time updates, et cetera, when's the next bus leaving to take you to the next subway, to walk, to take you to the connecting bus, and all the stuff. It routes it for you and gives you exact time frames and nice interface and all that good stuff. But the real interesting part is when you get to the ticket place, all you do is you pull your phone out and you go boop and tap the little ticketing area and you're in. And it's all calculated for you. The price is calculated. You can even optimize route by price, et cetera. So I think you'll see examples like that where it's just, consumers just think of it as I just touch it with my phone and it's there. So it's a great and important infrastructure component. But I would agree that it doesn't matter in itself unless, you can tie all the infrastructure pieces together.
If I can come in, firstly, there are millions and millions of NFC users in London. They've all got this thing. It's called an Oyster card. Right. And it's a stored value card, and all you do is you touch it to the subway and you can get in. So it's there. Millions of people are using it. So it's not something new. The point about NFC that we're experiencing is two things. One is the level of the transaction is going to matter. I don't think people are going to go and buy an Audi or a Porsche using NFC. However, if it's a small value transaction, and one of our clients is McDonald's, so the fast food guys are very interested for two reasons. One is it shortens their queues and makes things go quicker. So there's a real benefit to them of somebody using NFC rather than paying cash or rather than using a credit card. And from a user perspective, if it's a couple of dollars or 50 cents, they'd feel much more comfortable doing it than if I was buying something worth £50. So I think it is going to be important, but it isn't going to be, the be-all and end-all of payments.
Yeah, I think that will be the wallet of the future, and why not buying a Porsche with that over NFC? Of course, NFC in itself, that's nothing special. I totally agree, but the payment industry will undergo a severe change over the next years, replacing cards, replacing cash, and in that transition, of course, Google, but also the operators look into that, because the operators have some big assets there. They have customers where they know all the data which is needed to encrypt something on a SIM card, for example, to make payment directly available for them on the mobile phone. Second thing is the NFC things. Yeah, as you said, it's just going more into software than having hardware terminals, and it's so cheap that you can basically just roll them out, which Google is doing, for example. Yep. Yeah, and if you do that, you get basically merchant acceptance. And it's a two-sided model. You need millions of customers and 100,000 of merchants who accept. And then in between, it's just data. The operators have all that data. Of course, it's again an opt-in. But if you leverage that, operators, for example, could become the new payment guys.
Right.
And then on top of that, what Anne already said is like, using then the data, knowing where did you buy, what did you buy, whatever, then we come back to context and value-added services that really bring value to the customer. I totally subscribe to that.
All right.